Good morning, everyone. This is Nadex Morning Analysis, and it is December 28th. We are in the last week of 2020. I almost can't believe it.
It went quick, but it didn't go quick at the same time.
We're going to maybe be able to put this one behind us. A quick intro. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me is Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. Before Brian and I jump into some potential trade setups for today, in a week we anticipate will probably be a little slow, I need to share that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And lastly, this is an educational session. Please don't construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. So Brian and I were talking. I don't know if we're going to start with gold though. I think the things we got to talk about. And I'm apologize if I'm fidgeting. I did something to my back and I'm really suffering here. Okay, so we got Brexit, an agreed upon deal, and they even, I think the ambassadors from the EU approved it. We've got stimulus talks. The president did sign it. So, and then the House is talking about upping in a separate bill the amount of stimulus that would go directly to the American people. So we've got a couple of interesting things going on. So why don't you kick us off with some Brexit?
Yeah. So first things first, Brexit. There was an agreement. There are still pieces that need to be discussed. So it's an interesting article that came up. Again, this is brought up by Bloomberg, talking about how the process is literally just starting. Obviously, it's not going to be a hard exit. There is going to be some type of a free trade deal. There is things in there, but not everything is 100% settled. It still needs to be, it says, duly ratified by governments and the European Parliament. Pretty sure that will all go through, but there are still negotiations that need to happen. Thus far, the reaction to it hasn't been necessarily the most positive, but I feel like there's just what I would call Brexit hangover at this point. There's been so much emphasis on Brexit. UK traders are taking laptops home. They've been at this point, they're just so tired of it. There's a lot going on there, but businesses were prepared for it. I believe, again, there's a number of different quotes coming out of the UK talking about how businesses are ready, business is in a good place. Having some type of a deal in where there will be free trade is obviously great, but there's still a couple things that need to be settled. And really, I would say at this point, we've seen a pullback. We've seen UK weakness. But again, I feel like it's just kind of a pullback and a larger kind of push forward. I mean, before really COVID started and really going into the last year, the pound is really beaten up, went much, much lower. And many people expected, the opposite. The euro pound went very, very high. And again, the reason why is because, again, nobody knew what was going to happen. Was this going to be the end of the UK? What was going to happen? Well, we're there. So it was really starting from what I would call a low. Now that we have Brexit in, we've heard deals about, trade negotiations with China. The UK has already said they look forward to creating a new trade deal with the US. So at this point, Brexit was one of the biggest major hurdles for them because it was the most direct affecting trade deal that they had. There's an agreement. There's still a couple things that need to be worked out, which they will get worked out. Right. But now I would say at this point, we're kind of at what I would call kind of rock bottom. I mean, we every trade deal that kind of gets thrown in will be more beneficial for the pound. So it's about finding opportunity at this point. And again, we're in a pullback right now. If they announce next week that we're in, we're meeting with the transition team to already start discussing new trade deals with the US, that could be another catalyst to kind of drive us forward. So interesting place.
Yeah. Do you want to show a quick chart of the?
Yeah, I can show the euro pound. We can talk about
the pound the pound yen might be kind of interesting too, just to kind of see, because both of them are oddly they kind of hit their extremes and then they've just pulled back a little bit this morning.
Yeah, on a 4-hour basis, we had talked about this one up here at the 92.10, and we said, listen, we're waiting for a deal, and we finally kind of got news that a deal was coming, and we watched price kind of fall back to the downside. And again, this is what we expected to see, right? We wanted to see that pound strength come in, and we went from kind of an extreme in this position, and we rolled all the way back down to an area where we saw buyers around 89.54. There was some basing, and it did kind of push back again. And this is one of those things that I mentioned. When you kind of get in the middle range of this curve, things start to kind of get a little wonky. They go a little sideways. And again, we really didn't have great selling until we came up, back up until probably 90, 92. And you can see that we've kind of gone up to a little area. Now, there's a couple things that kind of, I think, halted the momentum and halted these big swings. One of them obviously being the holiday. So the deal's in, but do these bank traders, do the central banks want to be in there fast and furious trading this week? The answer is no. I mean, as we showed before, they said, hey, take your laptops home. We're waiting for Brexit. If it doesn't, the debt, we're leaving in 3 days. So we're waiting. And again, that's kind of what we saw was kind of I don't know, lack of a better word. They've taken the wind out of the sails of Brexit,
Right.
at least for this week,
Right. Here, actually, I'm going to go ahead and just throw up the
Sure.
The euro pound over on the Nadex platform. I mean, you were looking at it clearly from a longer term. This
is a 4-hour chart that I went up to.
Right, and the pound is clearly gained a lot of strength here, just in the short term. I mean, you could see how it actually gained strength all the way through up until Christmas, and I mean, as we expected, the deal happened, and then it's just kind of with no. I think you're right with the fatigue. It's actually just kind of drifted back up. Oddly, it's drifted back up into this 90-ish level that has been an important level in the past. I really don't know what people might want to do this week. I mean, I think for short-term trading opportunities, I don't know if this thing continues just to kind of go sideways this week and we kind of plateau here and wait and see what happens in the new year. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, for this week, because of where we are, like if you want to switch back to my chart, I can kind of show everybody here.
Yep.
We'll go back and do it from the kind of 3 o'clock window. So I don't know if you guys can see this line, this blue line that goes from top to bottom. Let me see if I can make it a little bit. I'll make it solid so you guys can see it a little bit better here. So this line is where the UK market opened. So you can see, before that in the overnight, really not tons of movement, little bit of a gap, filled it almost immediately, and then just kind of flatlined. This blue line is where the UK market started. And you can see most of the movement, and again, in this pair, we're talking about 40 pips higher, so not really a ton. Again, all of it came off the UK Open. So the way to play the euro and the pound this week is most likely going to be in the European session. Obviously, with no government and no news and that, there's no economic news events that are going to drive it. But most likely, what we're going to see is kind of more of this kind of just chugging, kind of a grind, no real major movements. We're not going to see this type of stuff. We're going to see more of this, right? So we're going to see, movement early on because, again, currencies are still changing hands, and then you're going to kind of get this stuff. But right now, I have to say for the day, looking on the 30 minutes, seeing the way these wicks are, I would say probably a bit more bearish this position for the day, a little bit more pound strength kind of going into it. But for the most part, most of your moves, and again, the move from, it was 40 pips up, and then since, from the high, it's retraced back about 20 at this point. So in the last 2-3 hours, most of it's been eaten away, but it's really that first couple hours of UK Open that we're going to see the movement.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's a little bit on at least on Brexit and what's going on with the pound, and the pound, clearly gaining its strength with the deal getting done. Let's talk a little bit about stimulus talks over the weekend. We got that little bit of a surprise. We see the U.S. equity markets all opening higher, but I think we'll see it in other markets as well. I know we had gold up there.
Yeah, I had gold up here as well. Yeah, I mean, stimulus is in. They signed it. And again, last week there was rumors, that Trump wasn't going to sign it. It wasn't enough. But remember, there was one thing that was looming on this one. There was a government shutdown also included that needed to get done. So had he not signed it, there would have been a government shutdown, and things would have got a little bit, again, for lack of a better word, a little wonky this morning. So that was kind of I don't know. It just goes back to it. When, the American public is struggling, it's okay not to, they'll survive, right? But when the government's going to be shut down, immediately things get done. So, what does it say? All men were created equal. Yeah, if you're a government worker, yes, but everybody else, no, not so much. So the deal's in. Where we're at right now, Trump said he wants 2,000 direct payments, not 600. Nancy jumped on top of that and was, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So I would expect to hear more about that this week and see that this week. Because like I said, I mean, she knows if she can get something through, Trump's going to sign it. He's already said I would sign it, that I want these direct payments. It can't have anything else in there. It's going to have to be direct payments. But I think she'll get it done just for that big victory going into kind of the new administration coming in January. So, and again, we're going to start hearing a lot more about the transition and the transition team and those type of things. And I'm sure stimulus is going to be up there. And like I said, as a party gift, the president will sign it. The House will definitely get something through. And again, I would not be surprised if they try to get something through this week again. Not as many people around, so.
All right, we'll see. Now, I'm just looking at your chart real quickly.
Yep.
Gold actually with the stimulus talk.
Yes. Yeah. Again, it went to the downside.
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah. And again, people were not happy with this. People were not excited at all. I mean, we talked about this level last week. Sellers had stepped in the past. You can see this grinding up. Hey, the president is not going to do it. And all of a sudden, gold goes higher and higher. And then the president finally signs it. And they're like, wah, wah, wah. And it shot straight back down again from that level. So I would say you got to keep 1900 on your radar. 1900 to 1906 are levels that sellers have stepped in. And again, as we mentioned last week, people are underwhelmed with this. And remember,
Right.
Gold is a proxy for inflation. Not getting as much money as you thought is not a good inflation play. When he signed this in, it's like, could that be it? And that's also what drove gold to the downside. And now today, obviously this morning, U.S. traders that are actually out in the markets trading today, what they're doing is they're reacting to, hey, stimulus was passed. Yes, inflation. They're what's driving gold higher. But again, that's kind of a short-term emotional response to, the thought that stimulus, gold. It just, unfortunately, it was not as much as they thought. And, like I said, there are people struggling out there. There's a reason why they need, the additional stimulus. And
Right.
again, that will drive gold talks.
So at least in the short term, I thought this would, let's just take a look at what you could do over in the Nadex markets. One way to play this in the short term, this is a knockout contract where we've had sellers step in up at the 1900 level. We've had buyers come in when it's gotten down to around that 1860. It's been a bit range bound.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, we got some knockouts that are right in this area where if you thought it were going to roll over again, if we drifted a little higher or wanted to take a short opportunity as the U.S. equities open in 20 minutes and maybe people start digesting and realizing, this really is going to drive the inflation. There's probably ways for you to consider that with a knockout, going short a knockout. The other way to play that, let's just take a quick look over in the call spreads, because I know that we've got some, and I'm just going to pick
And a call spread may actually be the way to do it. It is a lower volume trading week. You won't see as much institutional level trading. So again, it can get a little bit whippy with a weird headline. Just one thing to kind of keep in mind that, again, knockout, it's great. It's close proximity, it tends to be a bit cheaper to get into, but the problem is if you get any type of little of a whip higher, you could be taken out and then miss the entire ride. So a call spread sometimes is a better option, particularly, and again, low volume trading week. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, there's some call spreads in here that sort of fit that range as well. So looking for that move. If we get up towards the north end of the range, there might be a short opportunity. Conversely, again, it's going to be thin. I mean, since it's been range bound, there might be an opportunity if it got to the bottom of the range to potentially go long it. Although this is a daily call spread. The other thing, I think I'll save it. I'll save it. The binary options. I know we covered sideways markets last week, and I'm sure we're going to get an opportunity to discuss how to trade a sideways market with binary options. We'll discuss that later in the week.
Yep. We can do it tomorrow.
At least for today, because the equities are going to open in 15 minutes. Anything you want to share or talk about? Let me flip this up here back to you.
No, I mean, honestly, not much
US
today.
equity markets.
It's the Monday after Christmas, low volume trading week. Many people I know are not even going to be, this is their week to kind of decompress and start working on their goals for next year. And again, it's a great week to go back and kind of reflect on what's happened thus far. Monday in particular, again, there is no news the entire week. So it's one of those things that it's really driven by news headlines. So again, it's kind of one of those, if you find the opportunity, great. My kind of word of advice to people would be, don't force trades. Don't try to create something that's not there. Trade the same way that you normally would. You may not get entries, but that's just what you have to do. If you force trading, it tends not to work out well for you. Again, sideways strategies are necessarily not bad. Low volume trading weeks, we tend to channel more or less sideways, unless there's a little bit of news, and then it goes crazy, and then it comes back. So
Right. So, well, at Nadex, you've got those opportunities for short-term price action. And when the markets are kind of thin, there might be some opportunity, and you've got some levels to take a look at to potentially trade around. For today, Brian and I will be back to do this again tomorrow morning. We'll be here all week. Actually, we won't be here Friday. We'll be here today through Thursday. If you got any questions for Nadex, please email us, customerservice@nadex.com. Got any questions for Brian, you can email him at support@keeptradingsimple.com. If you don't have a demo account at Nadex to at least try or practice some of these, click that link below. You can open a demo account and practice in the Nadex markets. It's a free demo environment. Gives you an opportunity to test out some of these levels, test out some of your trading, short-term trading skills in Nadex markets. There we go. With that, I want to thank you for joining us today. Let's get at it. The last week of the year. Let's maybe something make something good happen in the markets. We'll catch you all tomorrow. Good luck in the markets, everyone. Thanks.
Take care.